Rising anxieties over a new arms race in space.
For launch.
In the vast expanse of space, a new Cold War has ignited between democratic America and authoritarian China. As the stars become the ultimate high ground, the United States fights to preserve a future where space remains free, open, and governed by international cooperation. Meanwhile, China's meteoric rise threatens to reshape the cosmos in its image, a tightly controlled frontier dominated by state power and military objectives. This isn't just about planting flags anymore, it's about whose values will guide humanity's greatest journey. Both presidents are not seeing eye to eye on things on planet Earth, what will be enough to govern the solar system. The battle for democratic space. America's vision for space has always been one of openness, international cooperation, and shared progress. From the Apollo programs, We Came in Peace for All Mankind, to the 15-nation International Space Station, the United States has consistently promoted space as a realm where nations work together under transparent rules. This approach reflects America's core democratic values: collaboration, transparency, and the free exchange of ideas and technology. NASA's long history of international partnerships has created a global scientific community that shares discoveries, coordinates missions, and collectively advances human knowledge. In stark contrast stands China's authoritarian model for space exploration. After decades of being shut out from international space cooperation, partly due to concerns about technology theft and military applications, China has built a parallel space ecosystem under strict Communist Party control. Their space program operates under military leadership through the People's Liberation Army Strategic Support Force, blurring the line between civilian and military objectives. While claiming peaceful intentions, China's space program exemplifies their broader strategy of military-civil fusion, where scientific advances flow directly to military applications with little transparency or oversight. The conflict isn't just ideological, it's structural. America's space sector thrives on innovation from companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, where entrepreneurial freedom drives technological breakthroughs. The Commercial Crew and Cargo programs have revolutionized access to space, with SpaceX's Falcon 9 reducing launch costs by over 70% compared to traditional government approaches. This private sector dynamism has made America the undisputed leader in commercial space, accounting for over 50% of the global market. The lunar land grab. The moon has become the first major battleground in this new space race. NASA's Artemis program represents not just a return to the lunar surface, but an attempt to establish international norms for space behavior through the Artemis Accords, a set of principles signed by 31 nations that commit to peaceful exploration, transparency, emergency assistance, and respect for space heritage sites. This coalition of democracies aims to ensure that lunar development proceeds under rules that benefit all humanity, with provisions for sharing scientific data and managing space resources responsibly. China, refusing to join this US-led initiative, has instead partnered with Russia to announce the International Lunar Research Station. Behind this scientific facade lies a concerning reality. China has persistently argued against Western concepts of space as a global commons, instead pushing views that could allow national appropriation of celestial resources. Their lunar South Pole target, the same region prized by NASA for its water ice deposits, suggests a strategy to establish control over the moon's most valuable resources before international norms can prevent territorial claims. American officials worry that China's lunar ambitions mirror its aggressive island building in the South China Sea, create facts on the ground, then assert control. China views the lunar South Pole the same way it views the Spratly Islands, warned one senior space policy expert from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. They'll establish presence first and negotiate later, if at all. This concern gained credence when Chinese officials at a UN Space Committee meeting in 2022 refused to endorse language prohibiting national appropriation of lunar resources, instead arguing for sovereignty-based rights for countries that establish infrastructure on celestial bodies. America's aging ISS versus China's military-linked Tiangong. In Earth orbit, the contrasts between American and Chinese approaches couldn't be starker. The International Space Station, led by the United States but incorporating international partners, has served as humanity's outpost in space for over 2 decades. A remarkable achievement in peaceful scientific cooperation. Astronauts from 19 countries have lived aboard the ISS, conducting over 3,000 scientific experiments whose results are shared globally. However, as the ISS approaches retirement around 2030, America is transitioning toward commercial space stations developed by companies like Axiom Space and Blue Origin, continuing the tradition of open access while fostering innovation. China's exclusion from the ISS through the Wolf Amendment, which prohibits NASA from cooperating with China due to national security concerns, drove Beijing to build its own space station, Tiangong. While smaller than the ISS, Tiangong represents something more troubling: a platform under direct Chinese military oversight. Intelligence reports suggest Tiangong conducts regular surveillance operations and tests dual-use technologies applicable to anti-satellite weapons, all while China publicly promotes it as purely scientific. Tiangong isn't just China's answer to the ISS, it's a military outpost disguised as a research facility, noted General David Thompson of the US Space Force. Even more concerning is China's aggressive development of counter-space capabilities, including ground-based anti-satellite lasers and orbital inspection satellites that could potentially disable American communications, navigation, and reconnaissance satellites during a conflict. The corporate space race. America's ascent in the new space race is powered by an unprecedented wave of private innovation. SpaceX has revolutionized launch economics with reusable rockets and is developing the Starship system that could take humans to Mars. Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos, is working on lunar landers and orbital habitats. Beyond these giants, hundreds of space startups have emerged in everything from satellite manufacturing, Rocket Lab, to asteroid mining, Astroforge, and in-space manufacturing, Varda Space Industries. In 2024 alone, American space startups attracted over $15 billion in private investment, more than the rest of the world combined. The Chinese response has been to create private space companies that remain tightly linked to the state. Companies like Landspace, iSpace, and Galactic Energy have made technological strides, but operate under strict party oversight and serve national strategic objectives. More troublingly, many of these firms maintain connections to China's military establishment or benefit from technologies acquired through industrial espionage targeting American aerospace companies. The U.S. Commerce Department has identified over 600 cases of attempted technology transfer from American space companies to Chinese entities in the past 5 years alone. They're not competing, they're stealing, said a former NASA administrator. While our companies innovate, theirs duplicate and militarize. This pattern extends to specific technologies. After SpaceX demonstrated reusable rocket landings, Chinese private company Landspace announced a remarkably similar capability just 3 years later, with designs that experts noted contained suspicious similarities to proprietary SpaceX systems. The battle for global influence. America's space diplomacy builds on long-standing alliances and shared values. The Artemis Accords now include nations from 6 continents, creating a coalition of democracies committed to peaceful, collaborative space exploration. These partnerships extend traditional alliances like NATO into the space domain, while creating new bonds with emerging space powers like South Korea, the UAE, and Brazil. The European Space Agency, Japan's JAXA, and the Canadian Space Agency contribute critical technologies to Artemis, creating an integrated democratic space coalition representing over 60% of global GDP. China has countered with its own space diplomacy initiative, the Space Silk Road, an extension of its Belt and Road Initiative that offers space technology and expertise to developing nations across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. On the surface, China provides these nations with telecommunications satellites, Earth observation capabilities, and ground station infrastructure. Beneath this generosity lies a calculated strategy to create dependencies, collect intelligence, and secure UN votes on space governance issues. A stark example came in 2023 when Ethiopia, recipient of Chinese satellite technology, voted against a UN resolution establishing norms against destructive anti-satellite tests, despite such tests creating orbital debris that threatens all nations. China isn't sharing technology, it's building client states that will support its vision for a China-centric space order. warned a State Department space policy coordinator. This pattern continues across developing regions, with Chinese-built ground stations in Argentina, Kenya, and Pakistan, allegedly doubling as intelligence collection facilities, providing China both diplomatic leverage and strategic advantage. The military frontier, the establishment of the U.S. Space Force in 2019, represented America's recognition that space had become a war-fighting domain, not by choice, but necessity. "We would prefer that space remain peaceful," noted the first Chief of Space Operations, General J. Raymond, "but we must be prepared to defend our assets and ensure freedom of action in space." America's military space capabilities focus primarily on defensive measures, early warning systems, and maintaining the space-based infrastructure that supports global security, from GPS navigation to missile detection. China's military space program tells a different story. The PLA Strategic Support Force has developed what the Pentagon calls the most comprehensive counter-space arsenal in the world, including direct-ascent anti-satellite missiles, tested in 2007, creating thousands of debris pieces that continue to threaten spacecraft, ground-based lasers capable of blinding satellite sensors, and orbiting inspector satellites that could potentially disable critical American space assets. Unlike America's transparent Space Force, China's military space activities remain deliberately opaque, with capabilities revealed only through intelligence assessments and occasional military parades. The contrast extends to stated doctrine. American space military officials consistently emphasize defensive postures and the protection of space as a global commons. China's military writings, by contrast, describe space as the ultimate high ground and emphasize the importance of space superiority in any conflict with the United States. A 2021 analysis of Chinese military journals found over 100 articles discussing scenarios for disabling or destroying American satellites in the opening hours of a potential conflict, a strategy aimed at blinding U.S. forces and disrupting the communications networks that enable American military superiority. America's leadership in a democratic space order. Despite China's aggressive space advancement, America maintains significant advantages that could secure a democratic future for humanity beyond Earth. The unparalleled innovation ecosystem of American private space companies continues to produce breakthroughs at a pace China's state-directed system struggles to match. SpaceX's Starship, if successful, will revolutionize access to space in ways that could leapfrog China's capabilities by a generation. The vehicle's potential to deliver 100+ tons to orbit at drastically reduced costs would transform everything from lunar exploration to Mars settlement. America's alliance network, spanning from the European Space Agency to Japan's JAXA and emerging space powers, creates a coalition that China cannot match in technological breadth or global legitimacy. The Artemis Accord signatories represent over 70% of the world's space investment and technology capability, ensuring that democratic values will shape humanity's return to deep space exploration. The China-US space race isn't just about technology, it's about global leadership, economic power, and military dominance. While the Cold War-era race was more symbolic, today's contest is multidimensional, involving commercial players, new frontiers like the Moon and Mars, and a battle for influence beyond Earth.